Good evening, everyone. If you'd like to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Call this meeting of the Elkins Common Council to order. And ask our recording secretary to call the roll, please.
Counselor Bross-Fragonera.
Here.
Counselor Chenoweth.
Here.
Counselor Quanzo.
Present.
Counselor Severino.
Here.
Counselor Guy.
Present.
Counselor Higgins. Absent. Counselor Hinchman.
Here.
Counselor Lowther. Absent. Counselor Parker.
Here.
Counselor Vest.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We have one agenda adjustment this evening that we'll see later on under new business. Is there anyone here for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move down to the minutes proposed for the regular council meeting of September the 15th, 2022.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Minutes proposed for the council public hearing of September the 15th, 2022.
So moved.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. In your packets, you received building permits since the last meeting, events, and the approved minutes of committees, boards, and commissions. And I'd like to welcome Woodlands Development and Lending Executive Director Dave Clark for his presentation.
Thank you. Good evening. Good to see everyone. Here to give what's become kind of an annual update on some of our activities in the city. I provide this little handout, and I'll touch on just some of these activities that we have going on. And I'll start in the very back. I think, as most of you know, we actually have two organizations under our umbrella. We have Woodlands Development Group that does a lot of community-based real estate development, and then we have Woodlands Community Lenders that does a variety of small business and real estate finance and technical assistance. And we've been, business has really been picking up on the lending side, I'll say. You can see some of the numbers here regarding lending activity in the city of Elkins in the last year. Community Lenders was really started by a group of us back in 2012 now with the Development Authority, then under the direction of Jennifer Giovanetti and the Tucker Community Foundation, the Housing Authority, and a variety of other folks. We started lending in 2013 in earnest. And you can see here now in Randolph County alone, we've now loaned about $2.3 million out to small businesses. We do a lot of this lending with our local banks, our local community banks in particular, Davis Trust, Freedom Bank, Citizens, Mountain Valley, Grant County, and others. And that's leveraged another 3 times that amount into a lot of these deals. A lot of our financing is really meant to fill in gaps where otherwise the deal would not get done, or the business wouldn't get the financing they need. So the bank may do 70% of what's needed. We can do 20, 25. The borrower only has to come up with that little bit of gap that's in there. We take on riskier loans, and we mitigate that risk by doing a lot of hand-holding, a lot of technical assistance to our borrowers. And so you can see here more numbers regarding the technical assistance provided a lot of the businesses in town. Particularly during COVID, we were able to take a lot of our resources and work with a lot of businesses who were trying to figure out what the world was looking like. And so we helped with a lot of website development, a lot of online marketing, online sales platforms, a lot of that kind of thing, new accounting systems for people, new lines of business. So that's been very successful. As I said, just in the last few months, this doesn't really reflect that it's really starting to pick up a lot more. We're seeing a lot more interest now in Elkins area businesses and starting and expanding. Moving over to the development side, we have, of course, over on Wilson Lane, we have a Firefly Commons project. This is behind the Tiger Mall over there. And many of you remember, it's probably been, 7 or 8 years ago now, we had a series of roundtables around the growing demographic, and the growing senior demographic, rather, in the county, and the projected dramatic increase in those numbers. And so Woodlands and the Senior Center, the County Commission, the Housing Authority, a host of partners got around the table for a while to talk about what would be needed, or what is going to be needed, to address this shift in demographics. And one of the things that came out of there clearly was the need for more senior housing, and more really in Elkins. We needed more right in Elkins. But we also learned that most seniors did not want to move into a seniors-only development. They wanted to be in a development that was mixed with seniors and with families. And that's the intent of Firefly Commons. So there's going to be a series of duplexes there, one-story duplexes targeting seniors, and then there's two-story duplexes that are targeting families over there. We're very happy with this project. It's working out really well. It's going to be done in about another month. We hope to have it all leased up in early December. And I'll say we've gotten huge demand. We've gotten phone calls regularly on that one. We've got a long waiting list, which is a good sign, I think. So very happy with that one. Moving over to the other side of town, we have, of course, the River Street house, the house that tragically burned down over a year ago now, and worked with the city to acquire that lot and get it cleaned up. We have it's taken us a while, but we put together the financing needed to redevelop a single-family house on there that we're going to try and sell for around $150,000, $160,000, really trying to target that kind of moderate income working family over there. Running into a couple site issues. We've had to halt construction for a bit, but those are going to be resolved soon, and we should get going on that one again here very soon. That'll be about a 9 or 10 month construction process over there. Then right up the street from there on Henry Avenue, probably remember there's that 2-story yellow brick dilapidated building that we were able to get a hold of, and again, the city worked with us to demolish that, get that lot cleaned up. We've designed there a 2-story duplex that's geared towards families. What we were hearing is really there was more of a need for family rental housing in that part of town particularly. And so, so that's going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath duplex over there. We have all the financing lined up and approved. Part of the financing is coming from the state, and they've been, unfortunately, a little slow in getting it together. So they tell us it's going to be December when we close on the financing. So realistically, it's probably going to be early spring before we can get started on construction over there on Henry. And moving down to the Tigard Hotel. Of course, the Tigard Hotel, I think everybody knows, is currently under construction. We're getting through the final bits of what's been a little painful demolition and discovery process on there. As with any old building, there's things under the walls, behind the walls you never expect. And so we're uncovering all of those, but nothing drastic, nothing too terrible for the most part. And we are on track then to get that finished next year. So construction is going to continue throughout the winter into the spring. We're targeting a kind of late summer opening date on the Tigard Hotel. And again, it'll be a 56-room boutique hotel. We have a management company lined up. We have a franchise agreement with Choice Hotels boutique arm called the Ascend Collection. And our goal as Woodlands, as a nonprofit developer, we really don't have any interest in staying in the hotel business a long time. Because of the financing, we need to be involved for a few years, and then our intent is to sell it, ideally to the management company we're currently working with, but then that'll be put on the market once it's up and proven itself after a couple of years of operation. Equally exciting, I think, for the Tigard is a lot of the activity we're now seeing and supporting in other parts of downtown. So I was counting them up, and I think Woodlands is now helping the owners of 5 different downtown building owners with redevelopment planning, figuring out how do we use historic tax credits on these projects, how do we bring in other financing, how do we put it together in a way that makes financial sense and good sense for the downtown. And I think that's pretty exciting. I think realistically, I think we're looking at a total of like 25 to 30 million that'll be invested in downtown Elkins in the next 2 years. That's kind of stunning. And that's on top of the event center that, of course, the Development Authority has already has the funding for it and who's going to be doing. So I think that's very good to see. The only other, of course, we're working closely with the city on the Riverfront Trail Project, as well as the East Project that's looking at trail development in the area. I'm glad to be supporting that, and the city's doing a great job, I think, leading those efforts. One of the other ones I wanted to mention is we do have a fiber network that was, the concept was developed by a whole variety of partners. Woodlands will be the owner and operator of this fiber network that's going to stretch from Elkins to Harmon, up through Canaan and on to Davis. With the intent really of providing high-speed internet service to some of our more rural and remote areas that are otherwise may not see that for quite some time. This is a fully funded, we just wrapped up the funding just in the last couple of weeks. It's a $4 million project funded by USCDA and the Appalachian Regional Commission. We're working very closely with Shane Whitehair in Region 7 over there, great partners. And we're going to be getting the RFP on that out here later this year with the intent of starting early next year on getting that developed. Lastly, I'll just say, you know, I like to say and think that everything we do at Woodlands really starts with some form of some kind of community discussion. I mentioned Firefly Commons coming out of the roundtables we had around senior demographics. And I'm sure many of you remember the couple of community meetings we had over at the Darden House about the Tigard Hotel, probably also 8 or 9 years ago, that led to the work going on there right now. And these kind of discussions really do inform all of our work and really help us set our priorities and our goals. And we really want to hear from people about what those goals are. So in light of that, we're getting to the tail end of a housing needs assessment that we're doing in Randolph County with Virginia Tech. And they've got a housing research institute over there, that great folks. WVU is very involved, the Housing Authority and the Home Ownership Center. And as I said, we're getting to the end of that. We're going to be having a stakeholder meeting to kind of hear what they have to say, but also to we'll hear what the needs are based on kind of market demand, but also what would the community like to see in terms of housing? Do we need more downtown apartment lofts? Do we need more senior housing or more single-family housing? And we really do want to hear from that, hear from folks about that, and that will set our strategy going forward for the next couple of years. So we'll get some dates out about that soon, but I do hope you'll consider coming to join us. Probably be over at the Development Authority office here the first week in November sometime. And if you can't make that, please feel free to come by our office, Del Monte, anytime. We'd love to talk to folks. Really, none of the work that we have going on would be possible without a strong partnership with the City of Elkins. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any questions?
All of your housing that you're building, is that all to be rental properties, or will you eventually sell those properties to people who live there?
We definitely do a mix of properties, like the house on River Street I mentioned. That's will be a single-family house that we'll put on the market. That we'll work with folks to try and sell that house to a family. We'd love to do more of that. That really, from my perspective, I think that is really the best way to build family wealth, to build community wealth, is through home ownership. And so we're looking for more opportunities to do that in the coming years, for sure. The other projects I mentioned, Firefly and Henry, those will be rental projects. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Mark Joke, here for Envision Elkins.
I guess before I comment, I really appreciate Woodlands and what they do. As you can see, they're making a huge investment and finding funding for a lot of projects, and it's very good for the City of Elkins, so very much appreciated. First thing, I guess, just Envision Elkins. What is it? It's an informal group, primarily of individuals who own, commercial property either in downtown Elkins or around downtown Elkins. As I say, it's an informal, so we're not an organized 501c3 or a corporation or anything like that. Many, including myself, we do not live within the city of Elkins itself. But as commercial property owners, we have made an investment in Elkins, and we want to create opportunities for existing and new businesses. Every year, this group continues to make additional investments in the downtown area, and I'll come back again and say we appreciate what Woodlands is doing because that's, again, additional investments in the area. And like you, our goal is we want to see Elkins grow and expand. Our role is to have positive discussions to educate, promote, support, encourage, and comment for successful business and climate. Envision Elkins, we're not a hands-on group. In other words, we don't take on projects or initiatives, but we have the discussions and then hope to have those discussions with others. We meet for lunch once a month. Usually it is a small group, but we have about 55 people on the email list, and we do prepare minutes and keep everybody updated with what our discussions are. What I'd like to turn to now maybe is kind of passed out this odd-looking tree, and we've had discussions a lot of times. I mean, what is Elkins? Are we a tourist town? You know, because, you know, from a tourist town, we have the Gandy Dancer, the train, the festivals, trails, and so forth. But we also have 3 banks that are located in downtown Elkins, plus their branches, along with insurance companies, CPAs, attorneys, and other business entities. We also have several healthcare entities within Elkins and education entities. We have a government cluster within Elkins. If you think about the city being located here, obviously, the county, the courthouse we have, Mont Forest is a cluster of government. Overall, what we see is Elkins is a regional hub. It's hard to come through and say Elkins is one type of entity or one type of community out here. We've got a lot of different businesses. And the top part of that says that's what we have. What's interesting is that even though Elkins only has 7,000 people, we draw from a lot of other areas. So the population base to support everything in Elkins is probably more like 30 to 40,000 people. Now, having been in healthcare and over at Davis Health System, I can tell you that the draw for healthcare services in this area is in excess of 40,000 people, because we would not be able to have the healthcare facilities we have in this community, whether that's Davis or Valley Health or wherever, if it weren't for the draw of population outside the area. So that draw is very important to make sure that we have this hub out here. But like anything else, you can't just sit there and say this is great. It still takes a lot of effort to make sure we maintain that community hub. The bottom part of this diagram down here is, if you think about the soil or the growth part of it, is you have to have the resources to grow the tree. This is the foundation that we talk about. You have to have a safe environment, community appearance, community organizations, a government, as well as a workforce, housing, which was discussed a second ago, broadband, and transportation. When we have the discussions at Envision Elkins on primarily these foundation issues more than anything else, you know, our discussions talk about zoning, parking, public perception. We had some discussions about the Oddfellows Lodge because that was recently sold, biking, hiking trails, Taggart Hotel, sidewalk improvements, the E3 conference that was held. We'd like to see a permanent farmers market, the 2020 census data and how that affected our community, riverfront development, which I know the city is very involved with. Most recently, our discussions have been about new people, and new people from the standpoint of where should we be going to recruit people, how do we attract them to this area, how do we keep them here once they're here, and also where do we find housing for the people that want to move to the Elkins area. And last year, I think I stated this too, is the Elkins City Council is an important part of the positive business climate that we have. Envision Elkins appreciates the council taking steps to have a strategic plan, to be involved in the riverfront development, to look at streetscape plan. All those things are part of the foundation that makes a good, strong community. We also understand that we have an outstanding police department, fire department, that we also need the infrastructure of water, sewage, and garbage collection and street maintenance, because again, if we didn't have those infrastructure pieces, we will not have a strong community. So overall, I think what I'd like to say, Elkins is made up of a lot of outstanding people, a lot of outstanding businesses out here. We appreciate everything, and we are optimistic about the future of where Elkins is headed in the future. And so, thank you very much, and be glad to answer any questions you may have. Hopefully
any
short and
questions?
sweet.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move down to our committee reports. Counselor Chenoweth?
With respect to the special hiring committee to find an operations manager, it's been a slow go. Still have the position posted, still soliciting applicants. So if you know anyone, please encourage them to apply. Our next meeting is November 2nd at 3 o'clock. We'll be looking over the additional applications that we have and hopefully setting up some interviews. Personnel committee, we met last week. We discussed and recommended to finance the creation of a human resources position. We discussed employee benefits, maybe alternatives to the benefits that we have, just looking into that. And the health insurance premiums for fiscal year 2024, there was some discussion on that. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Guy, report?
No report.
Thank you. Counselor Hinchman?
In respect to finance, there wasn't anything that was pressing, so the meeting was canceled. And we had a municipal property meeting, special call. Chairman Quanzo asked me to sit in on that. And what we were working with was an easement for the utility pole for more power for Gambles. That's still ongoing, so nothing was settled there.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Severino?
No report.
Counselor Ross Freganera?
Okay. Rules and Ordinance met last week, and some of the items are on the agenda for this evening. We will be meeting on Wednesday, the 12th, to continue our discussion on redoing the old animals ordinance. Specifically, we're looking at cats, deer, all sorts of things. We're looking at different ordinances from other cities and trying to pick out the best parts of those ordinances and hopefully improve on our own. And I would like to remind people that on Sunday, it will be the last Sunday open house tours of the Cump House. So this is your last chance to see the Forest Festival memories. Heather has really done an amazing job putting together a lot of artifacts that were part of her family, as well as programs and photographs through the years. It will be Sunday from 3 until 5, and those of you who have not been in the Cump House recently really should try to come and visit us. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Quanzo?
Thank you. Good evening. I think municipal properties, we had two main unfinished business topics that will be covered by our operations manager, so I will let her discuss those items. Moving on to the tree board, a couple of things. On Saturday, we will be, starting at 11 o'clock, the urban forester, Sam Adams, will be coming to the Cump House and doing a pruning workshop. And he will primarily be doing pruning on apple trees because we had some deer damage over there, and so we're going to need to take care of those trees. Sam will also be handing us the Gold Leaf Award, which was given to us for our endeavors for our Arbor Day, as well as other projects that the tree board has taken on over the years. So I think that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Counselor Vest?
Yes, we met last week with the audit committee, and we're getting ready to start or put a position underneath the building inspector. It will be a code enforcement and zoning, I'll get it out here, inspector, which will be, I guess, we haven't advertised for it yet, I don't think.
No,
But
that's,
it will be a position open in the future.
Counselor Parker?
Public safety met, and we spent our time primarily on two things. One was the availability, this new funding availability for distressed properties, basically for demolitions. And we think that's moving forward pretty well right now at the state level. We don't have a date yet when a check is going to hit the bank, but we have got the work lined out. We have 12 properties that we've identified. And we're really essentially ready to go on that. And then also, I think this falls under that same heading. We met with J.B. McCuskey, the state auditor, earlier this week. And he was interested to learn about what the impediments might be for counties and municipalities in addressing these difficult properties that we have. And we really covered that pretty thoroughly. I mean, he was making some notes, and I believe, my sense was that he's hopeful that at the state level, he can encourage some changes to the codes that would make it less difficult for us to do the job that we're responsible for doing. I mean, as we discussed, so much of what we have to work with at the state level is really an impediment to being able to carry out our duties and responsibilities with regard to these properties. And so he is very interested, and I think sincerely so, in streamlining this whole process from a legal point of view. So I'm hopeful about that. And then the other piece that we discussed at our meeting was the availability of drug company settlement funding. And that is coming down the pipeline too. And once again, we don't have a firm date on that, but we are optimistic that with these ongoing settlements, it's going to be a substantial amount for the city. And as noted there, and I keep beating this drum because we're holding our focus on two primary issues that we would like to apply this funding toward. Number one is seeing to it that our peers teams, peer recovery support specialist teams, who are absolutely critical to supporting the work really of the police department, the sheriff's department, everybody who's concerned about recovery, that the peers are properly supported. They need to be compensated. They spend a lot of time and it can be really stressful. And in many cases, they have to drive all over the place. I mean, like from here to Clarksburg, and then they learn they have to go to Charleston with this person to get them proper care. So we want to be well set up to deal with the peers, to support the peers in their work. And number two is transitional housing, sober living for women, where there's a real treatment component built into the housing situation. That's a very high priority. We're in a good position on that. We are engaged with a really top shelf organization out of Morgantown who will operate and manage such a facility for us. We will need to find the startup funding, which is one of the things we have our eye on with this drug settlement money. And so those two, the transitional living, sober living with a real recovery component, and the peers work are the two top priorities for us. And once we really make some progress on those, then we can expand. But that's where we are at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move down to our staff reports. I'll ask Chief Himes.
Good evening. Been a while since we've been together. So going back, month of September, 58 calls for service that month. Brought us year-to-date total as of yesterday, we were at 514 calls. So we're still trending up a little higher than last year, but pretty much normal. Back in August, we were visited by the State Fire Marshal's office. We are required to be audited in accordance with State Fire Code every 5 years for certification from that office. And I'm pleased to report that on the 7th of October, the State Fire Commission voted to recertify us. We were one of 8 departments that day that got a perfect evaluation. Festival wasn't too terrible on us. We did 27 food vendor inspections that week, and nobody was outside of fire code compliance there. As reported in public safety, the ladder truck is out of service. It's in Columbus getting some repair work done, hoping it's back, excuse me, in the next couple of weeks. Guys were doing, it was a week late because last week was fire prevention week, and apparently none of the kids went to school last week, so all the guys did all their fire prevention visits this week to all the elementary schools, distributed I'm gonna say about 130 smoke alarms to the kindergarten students, and did some programming with some of the other classes. And we still have smoke alarms available from the Fire Marshal's grant if you know anybody out there that needs one. Other than that, we've just got a few things on the horizon. We're demoing a online training platform right now to try to increase the availability of training to the guys, especially the volunteers that have other things to do. The only way I can get those hours up is make it accessible to them 24 hours a day. So we're kicking the tires on that service and see where that goes. Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Treasurer Judy?
Good evening. In your packet, you should have the report for August and for September, as well as the bank account balances of each account that we have. Does anybody have any questions regarding those reports?
Is the ARPA funds in the bank account, are those sitting there waiting to be used? Is that because the
It's-
projects haven't
yes,
been completed? Is that correct?
There's, the majority of the funds have been allocated, that's what's sitting in the account right now. All right, if nobody has anything else regarding those reports, the next two reports, first off is the fiscal year 2022 ending rebates that we received from the state for using the purchasing card. We received $15,069.08 back. And you see the breakdown by fund, what each fund received by that, as well as the fire and police pension totals. The fire department was not eligible for a state allocation last year. The city contributed $57,000 to the pension plan, and the police department was eligible for the state allocation. They received $129,164 into the plan. The city contributed $41,250. If you look at the next one for this fiscal year, we received the actuarial studies a few weeks ago. For the fire department, the city's contribution this year is $49,623, and we have contributed $25,000 so far. Once again, the fire department is not eligible for any state allocation. For the police pension fund, we're required to put in $23,501.85 and have contributed $13,500. They are eligible for the state allocation of $132,553.97, and as of this week, they have received $76,139. And if you look at the next two pages, this is actually from the actuarial study. If some of you who have been on council for quite a while, you realize probably 5 to 10 years ago, both of these pension plans were struggling. They also had to meet a deadline of 2025 to be fully funded. Based on the current actuarials, city will not have to contribute any more into either of these funds next year, is the way it's looking right now. So the fire department currently has 3 active firemen in that pension plan and 1 surviving spouse. The police department has 3 active officers with 11 retirees and/or spouses in that plan. So thank you to council for getting both of those pension funds where they need to be ahead of time. And yesterday, we received our second deposit in this fiscal year, sales tax deposit, in the amount of $381,378.70. That gave us a total so far received of $738,058.40. And that is, we're about $13,000 ahead of where we were this time last year with 2 deposits. And about $133,000 ahead of 2 years ago. So anyway, that's coming in strong, and that's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Symes?
Good evening. I've got several things to talk about, so if you guys have questions as I go over each item, it's okay for you to ask, or if you just want to wait till the end, that's fine too. And we can talk about, I'll start out by just saying thank you to our operations departments during the Forest Festival. I know the streets went out and did all the barricades, went back and picked those up. I don't think we had any issues with barricades this year. I know generally they'll call and say, you know, we need them at a certain intersection, but I think everybody was covered. Both the street and sanitation departments went out and did all the cleanup this year on Friday night, Saturday, and the guys said it seemed to be a little less than usual. I think they finished up and no complaints really from that. So just wanted to say thank you to all of those folks in those departments. And street department is doing leaf pickup. The truck broke down. Danny just told me today it's back on the road. So something was leaking, some antifreeze, something was leaking. So they have that back on the road tomorrow. They're gonna hit the heaviest areas first, and they're also gonna do bagged leaves too. If anybody wants to bag up their leaves, if they just let us know, or they can drop them off at the roll-off down at Jones Drive. Bulk pickups. Sutton has done a great job at helping us get all this information out. We talked to the sanitation department. We'd gotten several calls about confusion with the bulk pickup schedule that we had previously. So Sutton posted this schedule, so we kind of changed it a little bit. So Mondays will be first Monday, Tuesday pickup will be the second Tuesday, Wednesday, third Wednesday, Thursdays will be the fourth Thursday, and then Fridays the fourth Friday. So this is on the website. It's a little bit easier to understand, because I know it was a little bit confusing there with the dates that we had before. And it seems to be, the guys did start, I think this Wednesday, started picking up, so it seems to be going okay so far. Street sweeper has quit running, other than just helping with the leaf cleanup for the drains. So they might be following the leaf truck, so no worries about ticketing until next spring. The DEP grant, Phil had sent out letters to all of the folks, the property owners on that list that we had. And we also got a quote for asbestos testing. So Jerry Roberts and Shanna, Phil, and I all met last Friday, I believe. So there's a November deadline to hear back from those folks, the property owners, and then we're gonna move on pretty quickly on that, taking care of things there as quickly as we can, I think. And then the HVAC and bridge, we've been working on the City Hall HVAC, so we've selected a firm for that, and as well as the proposal for the South Davis Avenue Bridge. So we hope to have those contracts at the first November meeting so that you guys can review those. Jessica and I met yesterday with GAI and did our kickoff meeting for the streetscape. So it wasn't the best day. It was cold and a little bit rainy. But we met in the conference room and went over everything, and then went out and kind of walked around with them to see exactly, just to give them some additional information. And as we get more information or think of things, Jessica's been sending those attachments to them so they can have everything. And then we'll be they'll be scheduling public meetings, so we'll have public input on that as well. So just keep an eye out for that. We'll let you know when that's ready. And then Councilor Quanzo talked about the municipal properties meeting. Municipal properties agreed to go ahead, and I will be working with Bryson just to look at the plans for the sanitation garage again, and for that property on Baxter. We're gonna look at moving forward to bid that out to start a new sanitation garage. So I'll work with Tim Harper, the sanitation supervisor, on that, and Bryson. And then the Darden House, we talked about that in the municipal properties meeting, about renting out that space as well as the garden. So we're working on just getting all of that solidified, and I'll be meeting with the tenants. I'm hoping the current tenants in that building, hoping to get meetings scheduled in November, so we can talk with them about, how that will work, if there are folks renting that. And then the internet, finally. There's a contractor that works with Optimum that had to pull the fiber optic line back from Papa John's because I think it was accidentally taken that far. So they've got that in the building, the panel's installed, and we're just waiting for Optimum to come and put the router and everything. So hopefully within the next week or so, we'll finally get some good, steady internet there. I think that was all. Also, in the 2023 flower contract, we've put that out for bid as well. And I think those bids are due the second week of November. And then you'll see in your packet, I think it's resolution 1575, the permit for the parking on Sycamore Street. So the DOH has approved that. They're gonna go in and take the lines that are there currently out, and then we're going to purchase signage. It will be daytime use only, so we're gonna purchase that signage. They did offer to help us put that up and help us paint some parking tees, those little tees to delineate that parking on the park side. So that is a resolution, and then they can get started on that hopefully soon. I know they've been busy, but they've been wonderful to work with, very responsive. I think that might be it for me. There is an item, actually, should I wait, Jessica, to talk about the truck?
Yeah, I probably
Okay,
would.
okay, so whenever that comes up. Does anybody have any questions? It's been busy. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Chief Bennett?
Good evening. In September, Elkins Police Department responded to 615 calls for service that generated 24 cases and resulted in 15 arrests. We also issued 37 traffic citations. Throughout September, we also conducted 30 additional hours of DUI and speed patrols through the Governor's Highway Safety Program. And our body-worn cameras should be here within the next month. So we're getting very close on those. Once we get them, we'll field those, conduct some training, and work on how we're storing everything, get used to that, and then they'll be out in the field on every officer. So that's a really big deal to me. The Forest Festival, very smooth for us. We made a very concentrated effort to have good coverage throughout the city and be patrolling absolutely as much as possible, and I think that paid dividends. I think we had 8 total arrests for the week. I've seen years where we do that in 2 hours before, so very, very pleased with that. I think for the parades, we towed 2 vehicles on both days. That's a fraction of what we normally do. And I think one of the main reasons for that is our downtown sound system. This is the first festival that we've had it available to us, and being able to reach out and have people hear us announcing that we need to get cars moved and stuff in areas that they can't hear us from our vehicles, I think was a really big deal for that. So it made our lives a lot easier on those days, so very happy with that. We have had some critical incidents here in the past couple weeks. The first was a false claim of an active shooter in the Bridgewater area. While we never like to hear that, it was an opportunity to test our response, and I'm very happy to say that our response to that was great. We had officers on scene clearing that neighborhood within 2 minutes of receiving the call of an active shooter. We had other agencies there shortly after that, even as far as Upshur County. I think Upshur County was over here in around 10 or 12 minutes from the time of notification to back us up. And that's a collaboration that we have with our law enforcement partners around the area now. It's very strong, and it makes me very happy. Last night, Mountain Region Special Response Team was activated for a male subject in Parsons that went to the dollar store and shot their lights out with a shotgun and then barricaded himself inside his residence. We were out on that for about 8 hours last night, and we're able to get him into custody without any serious injury to us or him. So that's a very successful operation there. But again, that just shows the collaboration that we have and where all the money and time and effort that we put into training, how that pays off. So very pleased with that. Other than that, I don't have anything else unless somebody has questions.
All right, thank you, Chief. Ms. Roberts?
I don't have any special report. There are several ordinances and some resolutions. When they come up on the agenda, I'll speak to those.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead with my clerk's report at this time. As you're all probably aware, the mayor is attending the West Virginia Municipal League board meeting this evening. That's why he's not present here. I'm very happy to say that the city was awarded $50,000 Appalachian Regional Commission Power Planning Grant. This is a grant that the city approved a while ago, was submitted for the purpose of some trail master planning that's being coordinated through the East Group, which is this great partnership that has come together over the last year. We've got Woodlands involved, the Forest Service, the downstream strategies, the hub has been supportive of that, Mon Forest Towns. I mean, the list goes on of all the partners that have come to the table and made themselves and resources available for this effort, and I really appreciate that. We also have pending 2 other grant opportunities that, if approved, would help to sort of supplement this trail work that we're trying to get moving forward. Last Friday, the OEDC, which is the Brad and Elise Smith collaboration at WVU, hosted in conjunction with Mon Forest Towns a workshop up at Snowshoe, a 2-day workshop that was focused on, it was called Advancing Community Trails, and it brought in partners from Randolph County and surrounding counties. Anyone that participated in the Mon Forest Towns initiative and partnership was invited to come, and I think there were probably about 40 people there. Great presentations, really good content, lots of good connections and conversations. So this is happening all around us too, so it's nice to have that support. We have coming up next week, Smart Growth America will be here on Monday and Tuesday for some workshops. Some of them are targeted to specific groups. And then we have the broader workshop that's going to happen on Tuesday. Public presentation will be on Monday night at 6:30 at the Phil Gaynor Center. So we invite anyone interested in learning more about that. They've done a lot of background research to this point, and then through these small group sessions that they're going to have on Monday, that will contribute to some of the content that you'll see on Monday night. There'll be different content then presented and different workshops available on Tuesday. In conjunction with that, we are contracted strategic planning company that we're working with out of Morgantown is going to come down to observe those sessions. And so they'll be available and collecting a lot of data that will then feed into our strategic planning. That session is going to be an all-day session with council, administrators, and others on November the 1st. And I've started looking at election procedures. Things are going to be a little bit different this year because per our charter change, the election moved from the beginning of March to the second Tuesday in June, so everything is going to be pushed back. So I've started to review that content and look at those dates. It seems like, based on what I've skimmed this afternoon, that a lot of the procedures, filing periods and things like that won't start initiating until February. And I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. All right, we will move down to approval of vendor invoice payments for the period of September the 12th through October the 14th, 2022.
I move we pay the AP.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Down to new business, we have ordinance 307, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Elkins, West Virginia, repealing and amending Elkins City Code Section 90.03, barking and howling. This is the first of two readings.
So moved.
Are there any questions or comments?
What is the gauge, or what will be the gauge before action is taken?
So what, the Rules and Ordinance Committee looked at the current ordinance with regard to dogs, and it was really just two dogs that are making noise and disturbing the peace of the neighborhood. It had this 15-minute time period of barking, which is basically unenforceable, I think would be the way our chief would explain it. How do you do that and whatever? So they looked at some other cities, how they handled not just dogs, but other animals that would basically disturb the peace and the quiet of the community. So I believe this is a very close to the example that the city of Morgantown used. So we added, it's not just dogs, it's dogs, cats, or other animals. So now I believe that this will be something that can be enforced by our police department, and hopefully will deal with the situation where an animal in a neighborhood is disturbing the peace and quiet and of that particular neighborhood. Chief Bennett was obviously at the meetings and when it was first discussed, and when we had the proposal that is now in front of council at the last meeting, and everyone seemed to be in favor of this and think it's something that can be enforced.
Thank you.
One thing that, one thing that somebody from the public had commented about was that there is a little bit of a misunderstanding that if there is a situation, who to call. And this makes it clear that calls should come into the city police. Some people had thought it was erroneously the code enforcement office, but indeed it's our police department where people should call with complaints.
Any other questions or comments?
I was just curious as how you determine what is unreasonably loud.
Well, again, that's going to have some judgment involved. I think the way this usually comes up is someone calls in and says, we have a problem in our neighborhood, dogs are making, a dog, or maybe it's more than one dog, is disturbing the area. My understanding from what Chief Bennett, and certainly you please chime in, Chief, if I'm wrong about this, their officers go to the area, check out what the situation is, and I believe the first time it's more or less, we try to get the people to comply and understand what the problem is,
And if it continues to be a problem and they get numerous calls or repeat calls, then I think, as always, as the police department has latitude with regard to using their discretion and judgment about how they're going to enforce any city ordinance. So I think it's really going to be left up to the best judgment of the officers that are involved in this. And I think they do a really good job of doing that and everything else, and I anticipate they'll be able to do the same thing here. I mean, it's sort of that situation, you know, something may not be bothering one person, but it may be bothering someone else. And sometimes all you have to do is talk to the owner about the situation to get it under control.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving down to item B, ordinance 308, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Elkins, West Virginia, amending Elkins City Code, Section 152, zoning. This is the first of two readings.
So moved.
Pass ordinance. Sorry.
308.
I'm lost on the top of the page.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1568, approving full-time regular employee status and confirming compensation level for Z. Judy.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1569, approving full-time regular employee status and confirming compensation level for T. Burchell.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1570, approving full-time regular employee status and confirming compensation level for S. Arbogast.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1571, accepting conditions and terms of the Walmart slash West Virginia statewide settlement agreement and authorizing the execution of the election and release form provided by the West Virginia Attorney General.
So moved.
Are there any questions or comments?
Just have the city attorney explain this a little further.
Certainly. I believe I sent a memo out yesterday to the members of council, the mayor, and several of the administrative officers. Back in May, council voted to approve the execution of the memorandum of understanding from the West Virginia Attorney General's office that would have to do with how the funds through this settlement, the opioid litigation settlements, would be able to come to local governments. By agreeing to that MOU, you are now availing yourself of the funds that will be paid to the state. This resolution, 1571, has to do with Walmart, and as you'll see, the next three subsequent resolutions have to do with settlements concerning other drug companies or distributors that were part of the opioid litigation. These funds were all going to go into a foundation, basically, is what they're going to call it. There'll be a board that will administer this. But if the city wanted to have any participation in those funds and what will go to the governments, the local governments, and obviously the city is one of them, that 24.5% is going to be allocated to local governments, you need to agree to this election and release the particular company that has settled with the state. Since the city was not part of the original litigation, you are a non-litigating, participating local government by agreeing to this. Each and every one of these next resolutions basically are the same thing, other than the amount of settlement with regard to each of the companies involved. We have since then even gotten another one, so there'll be another one on your agenda. And to be honest, I'm not sure how many different companies are defendants in those cases, but as they come in, you're going to see a very similar situation. I believe at this point you've already agreed to two others, and the Endo settlement, and the other one I believe was Rite Aid. So this will be 6 if you approve all of these resolutions this evening.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1572, accepting conditions and terms of the CVS West Virginia statewide settlement agreement and authorizing the execution of the election and release form provided by the West Virginia Attorney General.
So move.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1573, accepting conditions and terms of the Teva Pharmaceutical Industries West Virginia statewide settlement agreement and authorizing the execution of the election and release form provided by the West Virginia Attorney General.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1574, accepting conditions and terms of the Allergan West Virginia statewide settlement agreement and authorizing the execution of the election and release form provided by the West Virginia Attorney General.
So move.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 1575, authorizing parking upon a West Virginia state highway.
So moved.
Are there any questions or comments?
Can we have an explanation of this, please?
This was referenced earlier by our interim operations manager, Melody Himes. I don't know if you had arrived yet. Melody, do you want to explain the situation?
Back, I guess it was probably this summer when DOH went, they paved Sycamore and they striped the two yellow lines, the center lines. Those were moved over a little further on the south side where the parking is generally on the park side, like where the pavilion is on Sycamore. So when we got some concerns about safety issues, some folks had called and said they had concerns when people were parking there, and then there wasn't enough room for cars to pass. So we contacted John Monk. We went out and looked at the site, and he said any state route is by default no parking. So for several years, folks have been parking there for the church and park activities. So we spoke with Tom Tessar. He came to, I believe it was a municipal properties meeting. Mr. Monk came as well and talked to that committee. And we went out with the street department and Mr. Monk and looked at the area, measured everything, and he decided that would be okay. And Mr. Rossi, the district engineer, also approved the permit. So what they're going to do is come in and remove those stripes and move them over so that we can have the parking on that side, the Sycamore side of the park. But we're going to paint some lines, like those T's like we did on 3rd Street, just so folks know where to park. And then DOH has offered if we purchase the signage, they'll install it for us. But it will be, Travis, I think we talked to you about this too, it'll be daylight only. So I think that was a recommendation from the police chief. So we're hoping to get this rolling. And Mr. Monk wanted something from council to approve just so we could keep it in the record that that council approved it, and then we can hopefully get it moving forward. They have one more, with the contracted company that they utilize for the striping are coming in one more time. So he's getting ready to put in the work order. So hopefully this will get done before winter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And finally, we have a consideration of a bid waiver per City Code Section 30.20 for purchase of street department vehicle.
So moved.
Can someone explain that to us, please?
I can, if that's okay. So recently I found out, just due to the difficulty in finding vehicles for anywhere, I think far and wide, the street department had put an older truck, I think that maybe was passed down from Parks years ago, and they had put that in the auction, the auto auction that we just had this summer. So Sean, the street department supervisor, came to me and asked if they could purchase a truck that they found. It's a 3500 Chevrolet regular cab 4x4, and it has a utility bed to replace that truck. However, it's $67,776, so that's above the bidding threshold. So I requested if council will consider that, I believe that we'll also have to take this to finance. The truck was not budgeted for this fiscal year. So Ms. Judy and I just spoke about that, but I believe it will have to go to Finance Committee and then back to council. Now, the truck is still, is that right, Jessica? If finance approves
If
it?
council permits the waiver, which is what they are considering, there's certain provisions in 30.20 that allow for a waiver of the bid process.
Okay.
If that process is waived and then the funds are made available, it won't have to come back to council.
Okay.
And just to let you know, under the city code 30.20, section 30.20, there are several reasons that you could decide to waive the bidding process. Under B, small a in parens, things about public welfare, but I believe in this case, this would be the one that would be appropriate, particularly with the difficulty everyone's having procuring goods right now, and it's sort of first come, first serve, and if you can get it and it's meet your needs, you probably ought to find a way to act on it. And B says, and I love the language in this, it's kind of old way of saying things. Procurement of the contemplated goods or services is of such urgency as to brook no delay. So I believe that in this case, that could be your reason under the bidding section of the city code to waive that process so that the street department could avail themselves of this opportunity to get this truck once the financing is worked out through the budget process.
Thank you.
So we have a motion on the floor. In the motion itself, we'll have to reflect the reason given, and I understand it's 30.20 A, pardon me, B,
Little way,
little a.
in parens.
Yeah, sorry. A lot of friends there. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. There'll be nothing under mayor's comments this evening, since I already gave a report earlier. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
There'll be booking no delays.
Yeah.
Love that.